A crow drops dead on a sidewalk in Seattle. Within minutes, more crows arrive. Then more. Soon there are a dozen of them circling above the body, calling loudly, refusing to leave. They're not eating. They're not scavenging. They're just there. Watch it happen once and it feels almost eerie. A silence breaks into sudden noise, birds converging from 3 or 4 directions at once, as if some signal went out that only they could hear. For a long time, people assumed this was random noise, birds being loud the way birds are loud. Then a graduate student named Kaylee Swift decided to actually test what was happening, and what she found was stranger than anyone expected. Here's how the experiment worked. She'd walk into a residential neighborhood carrying something unsettling. A taxidermied dead crow, mounted to look freshly killed. She'd set it down in plain view on the grass, step back, and wait. Within minutes, local crows would spot it and start gathering. They'd call out in a specific alarm pattern, sharp and repetitive, completely different from their usual chatter, and other crows nearby would join in, drawn by the sound itself, until sometimes 20 or more birds were circling a single dead body on the ground. Here's the part that turned this from a curiosity into something genuinely strange. Every time Swift set the dead crow down, a person stood nearby wearing a distinct, unusual mask. Always the same mask. Every single trial. The crows didn't just react to the body on the ground. They watched the human standing beside it, and they filed that specific face away. Weeks later, in that exact same neighborhood, someone would walk through wearing that same mask again, with no dead crow anywhere in sight, nothing on the ground at all. The crows would still scold. Still dive, still call out warnings, still treat that particular face as a known threat, sometimes for months afterward. In some of Swift and Marsluff's longer studies, crows kept scolding a masked face for years after the original encounter, long after any of the original witnesses had reason to still remember it firsthand. Sit with what that actually means for a second. A crow that saw a dead body once, next to one particular face, filed that face away as dangerous, and kept warning other crows about it long after the event itself was over. That's not scavenging behavior. That's closer to an ongoing investigation. Researcher John Marsluff, who Swift worked alongside, had already spent years studying how crows respond to threats, and what he found pushed the mystery even further. Crows that personally witnessed a masked person near a dead crow would pass that danger signal along to crows who hadn't seen anything at all. Young birds. Newcomers to the area. Crows that had never once encountered the mask directly still learned to scold that same stranger on sight, taught the danger secondhand, purely through the alarm calls and body language of birds who actually saw it happen. A warning, passed hand to hand, or wing to wing, through an entire crow neighborhood, about a threat most of the birds in that neighborhood never personally witnessed. So why would evolution wire a brain to treat a dead body as an opportunity to gather intelligence, instead of just an ordinary hazard worth avoiding on sight? Because for a crow, a dead crow lying out in the open is genuinely valuable information, not a horror to flee from. It might mean a new predator has moved into the territory. It might mean one specific person, in one specific location, is dangerous to be near, worth remembering, worth warning the rest of the flock about. A bird that ignores a dead member of its own species and simply moves on with its day is, from a pure information standpoint, wasting a rare and useful opportunity. The birds that stop, investigate, and remember are the ones more likely to avoid whatever killed that crow in the first place, the next time it shows up. Gathering around the dead isn't sentiment, at least not in the way we usually mean it. It's reconnaissance. Here's the part that should genuinely reframe how strange all of this is. We call it a crow funeral because that's the closest word humans have for a silent, or not so silent, gathering around a body. But a funeral, for us, centers on grief, memory, closure, something deeply emotional. What crows are doing looks similar from a distance, black birds circling something still on the ground, calling out into the air above it. But the actual function underneath appears to be almost entirely practical. Threat assessment. Collective memory formation. A neighborhood watch meeting, convened in the sky, over a corpse. That doesn't make it less remarkable. If anything, it makes it more remarkable. This isn't a bird acting on some vague instinct to huddle near its own kind when one of them dies. This looks closer to a functioning intelligence briefing, run entirely by animals with a brain a fraction the size of yours, capable of identifying one specific human face out of thousands, tagging it as dangerous, and spreading that exact warning through an entire social network of crows who never even witnessed the original threat themselves. And crows aren't the only ones doing this. Magpies, close cousins in the corvid family, have been documented gathering around dead members of their own species in strikingly similar patterns. Some researchers studying the behavior have described something that looks almost ceremonial, birds arranging themselves around a body, going quiet, then dispersing all at once. The pattern doesn't seem unique to crows specifically. It seems to belong to an entire family of unusually intelligent, unusually social birds that all arrived, independently, at roughly the same conclusion, without ever comparing notes. Death is data. Don't waste it. There's something almost unsettling about how well this system works. A crow doesn't need to personally witness a threat to fear it correctly. It just needs to be in the neighborhood when the alarm goes up, close enough to watch the reaction of birds who did see something. That's a form of learning that spreads faster than any single bird's own experience ever could, moving through a population the way a rumor moves through a small town, except this rumor is frequently accurate and frequently keeps birds alive. Marslove has told a version of this story that still unsettles people who hear it for the first time. Years after his original mask experiments on a university campus, long after most of the original crows involved should have died of natural causes, new crows on that same campus, birds that were never anywhere near the original study, still scolded researchers wearing that same mask on site. Nobody had retaught them. Nobody had run the experiment again. The knowledge had simply outlived the individual birds who first learned it, passed down through a population like an inherited grudge nobody could quite explain anymore, if you asked any single crow involved. That's not a rumor moving through a town for a season. That's closer to folklore, quietly encoded into the behavior of an entire species, one generation handing a specific fear to the next without a single shared memory connecting them. So the next time you walk past a group of crows gathered noisily around something lying still on the ground, don't assume you're watching random bird chaos, a coincidence of scavengers drawn to the same spot. You're watching an active investigation. A warning being drafted, refined, and distributed in real time, information that might get passed down through that exact crow neighborhood for years, long after you've forgotten the moment ever happened, long after you've even forgotten you were there. A crow drops dead on a sidewalk. And somewhere nearby, a dozen witnesses are already deciding exactly how they're going to remember it, and exactly who they're going to blame.